What is up, my beautiful den of wolves? It is your boy John, aka Darkwolf92. How are y'all doing this fine evening? Uh, dude, I've been trying. I said I was gonna start only doing these type of videos on Fridays because those are going to be Freaky Fridays. But this one caught me off guard, and it's Mr. Nightmare. 4 scary true stories from the bad guy's perspective. Okay. So I'm thinking, okay, this the people that was doing the wrong. Okay, this is from their perspective. Who is they to be able to see? I mean, how are they? I've got to see how this. I mean, it caught my interest, and I was just like, oh yeah, I have got to see this because this just caught my interest right away. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this. And like I said, this is Mr. Nightmare. Go ahead, check out his channel. The good man has been here for a while. He has over 7 million subscribers. His stories are amazing. You guys really need to check him out. Show him some love and some support. I will leave his channel link in the description. Okay, and to all my subscribers, as always, and especially my newer ones and my long-standing ones, much love always. Thank you so much for your support. And as always, if you like my reaction to this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends about me, okay? Help me get to at least 1,000 subscribers by this summer. And once we hit that major mark, we can go from there, all right? But let's go ahead and get this video started. This has really got me nervous. Oh, wait. 4 stories that make you the bad guy. What the? Wait.
I'm not a good person. There's really no other way for me to say that. I'm okay with that at this point in my life. I was dealt a rough hand my entire life, and unfortunately, I played the hand I was given. I'm not looking for sympathy either. It is what it is.
Damn.
So with that being said,
He said it is what it is.
Understand why I'm telling this story anonymously. It's hard to believe now, but this story I'm about to tell happened to me almost 20 years ago. Back in the early 2000s, I was the worst I'd ever been. I was constantly getting into trouble.
I think we've all been down that road
robbery,
before.
fighting, Grand Theft Auto, the list goes on.
Okay, I don't think all of us have been that bad. Damn.
There was this one horrible night where I came awfully close to getting what I deserved. Back then, there was about a 6-month period when I played this little game. I would drive to a different small town in the middle of nowhere every couple of days. Because I never stayed in one place long, finding these little towns was very easy. There's literally a countless number of small towns in the United States. When I arrived in these towns, I would spend a little bit of time scouting the area and finding an old couple. My target couple would always be old and frail looking. It's hard to explain, but they would also have to seem weak. I know that seems vague, but part of my grift relied on them being mentally weak in addition to being physically weak.
He was a
Once I found my ideal candidate,
punk.
I would wait until it got good and dark, but not too late. Usually around 9 p.m. was my go time. That's when I would frantically show up on these old people's doorsteps begging for help. I would point to my car in the road and claim that it died. I would have some flimsy excuse, like my wife was in the hospital about to give birth, and I needed a phone immediately to call.
And the sad thing is with the elderly, especially if they're alone, they have nobody, they could easily fall for this. That's why I was always telling my mom when she lived alone in Delaware, don't answer the door to anybody unless you know they're supposed to be there. And that's why I was so anxious to get her back to Texas. This is already pissing me off.
For help. Once the old folks would invite me inside, I would tie them up and rob them blind. I'd never steal anything sentimental, and I just did my absolute best not to hurt the old people. Harming them was never part of the game. I just wanted to rob them. Now that you all know how much of a trash bag of a human being that I was, I'll tell you about the night when this little game almost ended my life.
Too bad it did.
Started just like
I'm
all
sorry,
the
did I
others.
say that out loud?
I found my targets and got ready for the robbery. I pulled my car in front of the house a little after 9 p.m. I planned on telling the old couple my usual line, that my wife was pregnant and the car died. Sadly, this line worked every time. The location is important in this story, so I'll try to describe it the best I can. The house was basically the only house on this road. I think the next closest house was about a 3-minute drive. The front of the house was basically on the road. There wasn't much of a driveway. They had one old pickup truck, but that was parked on the side of the house in the grass.
Is that an actual photo of
Behind
that
the
house?
house were woods as far as you can see. Knowing the area was an important part of my grift because if things went south, I needed to know what the best way out could be. Since this house didn't really have much of a front yard or driveway, my escape plan was an easy one. At least I thought it would be. I put on my game face and
I was
ran
gonna
to
say, is
the
that a
door.
face in the
I
doorway?
started knocking and screaming for help.
Just a.
An old woman answered the door. She didn't look scared or concerned in the slightest. With almost no sense of urgency, she asked what the problem was. I started frantically explaining that my wife was in the hospital about to give birth to our first child and my car broke down. I needed to call someone for help. The woman smiled. It was a rough smile. There weren't many teeth. She grabbed my shoulder and told me to come in. The woman's demeanor was giving me pause. Usually the people I'm robbing at this point are freaking out and trying to help any way they can.
Photo's
Not
creepy
this
as
woman.
hell.
She cheerfully guided me in and told me to stand in the living room, which was the room just right of the front door. In a creepy voice, she told me not to worry and that I'll be okay. It was right then that this giant man walked into the room. I'm exaggerating a bit when I say giant, but he was huge. I would guess well over 6 feet tall and easily 400 pounds.
Damn.
He had a bushy black beard that stuck out from his face about 3 inches. But the two most notable things about this large man were that he was holding a hunting rifle in his hand, and he was not old. This man couldn't have been more than 25 or maybe 30 years old. Younger people were not as susceptible to my game, so this was a major oversight on my part. The woman spoke up and told me that this was her son, and he'd go out and take a look at my car. Before I could even get a word out, she shouted Hank at the top of her lungs. She started telling me that her husband Hank is in the other room, and he'd for sure help me. She continued yelling for Hank, and at the same time, her son went outside. I started to panic a bit because her son would clearly see that my car is fine, and I didn't think just rushing out was the best idea since he was walking around with that rifle in his hands.
Oh.
Hank limped into the living room where I was standing.
Damn spider.
And just stared at me. The old woman said something about helping me, and Hank just mumbled something under his breath. This is when I noticed the smell. Everything happened so fast once I got to the door that I didn't realize the smell inside the house was bad. Like really, really bad. It wasn't the smell of body odor. It was something else. Something worse. And that's when I decided it's time to go. I started creeping toward the door, and I saw Hank mirroring my movements toward the door. The old woman was also creeping closer to me and asking where I was going. She kept asking me what was wrong, and asking if I still wanted their help. I made up a stupid lie and told them I needed to get something out of my car. Both of them were closing in on me. When I was about 6 feet from the front door, I made a hard move and sprinted the rest of the way. As I ran, I felt Hank attempt to grab me, but thankfully, my youth allowed me to slip away quickly.
Yeah, but you still got to deal with their son.
I forgot about their son outside. That intense moment inside had my blood pumping, and leaving was the only thing on my mind. When I got to
Dumbass.
the car, I noticed that all 4 tires had been completely deflated.
Ooh.
As I ran closer and inspected the tires, I could easily tell that they were slashed. I didn't know what to do or what was going on.
Better ride your ass on them
I didn't
rims.
see their son, but I heard Hank yell from the house that I was outside and that I couldn't have gotten far. I decided to run into the woods. I know that's like a cliche, but hiding in the cover of darkness in the woods seems like a better idea than running on an open road. I sprinted deep into the woods for a minute or two, and then hid behind a big tree to catch my breath.
They know them woods probably
I
way
got down
better
to the
than
ground
you.
and did my best to listen for footsteps. Not long after, I heard the sound of heavy footsteps coming toward me. I couldn't move because that would clearly bring attention to my hiding spot. I was holding my breath and trying my best not to move a single muscle. The footsteps were getting louder, and they felt like they were on top of me. And I looked to my side, and 2 feet from my head was the old couple's son walking by me, swinging the hunting rifle in his hand. I think the only reason he didn't hear me was because of the loud sound of his heavy footsteps. I could feel myself shaking as he stepped by me. Somehow, he didn't see me and just continued walking in the dark. I waited for him to get out of sight.
That'd be
and I
thinking we didn't have
basically
a
crawled out of
flashlight.
the woods. When I got back to the house, I still snuck quietly back to my car. I could see in the windows of the house that the old woman was just standing there looking outside toward the woods. Somehow, she didn't see me. I didn't see Hank, which led me to believe that he must have been in the woods also. I decided to do the stupidest thing ever, and I still can't believe it worked. I got into my car with its flat tires, and I essentially rolled down the street as far as I could before the tires were completely dead. Once I could hear them grinding on the ground, I got out of my car and ran as fast as I could back to the town. It took me a while, but I made it. I eventually got someone to tow the car out of there, and I didn't tell them or any police about the old people. I didn't want anybody to dig too deep into my life. Once I got away and got the car towed, I didn't want to think about those people ever again. I don't really know for sure what happened that night. I know what I felt and I know what I saw. The body language, the smell, the slashed tires, just everything adds up to something bad. I found this experience to be a middle finger of karma from the universe. I did somewhat clean up my act soon after this experience.
That was God saying.
I definitely didn't become a saint. I'm still a bad person from my past. I'm just not as bad as I used to be. And I do feel regretful and remorseful for a lot of what I've done. Honestly, though, I think whatever those people were up to was far worse than whatever I was out there doing.
It serves you right. Yeah, he got what he shoot. He lucky they didn't whoop his ass. Golly. I mean, sorry for pausing, y'all. It just bothers me when I hear stories like that. I mean, he said he targeted the elderly straight up. So, but hey, like I said, that was God teaching him. He finally got tired of his crap and says, "It's time for you to learn, son." And he almost found out from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family. That's the best way I can describe it. Because damn.
I've never shared this story before in its entirety because I don't like the way it makes me look. Basically, I spent a little over a year being a criminal. I worked as an overnight security guard for this large strip mall in my hometown. For obvious reasons, I'm not going to mention the name of my hometown, the mall, or anything else that could potentially get me in trouble. For the first few months, I took my job very seriously. Once I had the lay of the land, I realized how insanely boring my job was. At first, it was like a dream job. I'm a night owl, so staying up all night is nothing new. I also don't love people, and this job had about zero human interaction.
I'm not mad at him about that because I hate to say it, over the years, I've started getting that way, and it was mainly due to being around people who've just been so annoying. I mean, I am a people person, but at the same time, over the years, when you deal with enough dumb people, it does make you this way.
Would monitor the security cameras, make a few nightly walks around the mall, and basically listen to podcasts or watch shows on my phone all night. This honestly got old a lot quicker than I thought it would. It was the boredom that got to me. I needed something to give me a little spice in my life. I spent most of my life to this point never getting into trouble.
What do you do, rob the subway?
I was the bad kid, and for all my adult life to this point, I had
chicken
never
enchilada milk.
Ooh,
that sounds good right now.
One night, after monitoring the cameras, I realized that one of the back doors didn't have a camera near it. I don't know how that could ever happen, but I was happy it did. I should explain the layout of this strip mall. Just like any other strip mall, the stores are all lined up in the front. What was cool about this mall was that behind every store was a large back room that connected every store to the security office. From the office, I had access to every store, so even though the front door of a store would be locked, I could still gain access from the back room. After discovering that back door with no camera, it got me thinking. I wondered where all the other blind spots were. I started paying closer attention to the cameras and making notes of all the blind spots I could find. When I would make my nightly walks, I would go to some of these blind spots and do something stupid like a dance move. And then when I got back to the office, I would play the tape back and see if you could see me dancing. If you couldn't see me, then I knew the spot was blind, and I made a note in my phone of the exact location. Once I noted every blind spot, the boredom set in again. I started to think of ways I could utilize these blind spots with the back door. I started with something small. I went to one of the stores and took a hat that was on a rack in a blind spot. I opened the back door and put the hat in a box outside the door. When I left that morning, I drove around back and took the box. The next night, when I showed up, I played the tape back from when I took the hat, and when I left, there was no video at all of me. I had convinced myself that I had perfected the art of stealing just like that, and that's exactly what I did for a long time. At some point during the shift, I would just steal something because I could. Sometimes it would be something small like a cheap t-shirt, and other times it would be something far more valuable like an expensive pair of sneakers. I realized that these stores obviously have inventory, so I was careful and methodical with what I stole. I apologize for the long setup, but I think it's necessary to understand my job and what I was doing at this job for full context. One night while I was making my rounds, I heard something. This was the first time anything of note ever happened. The only crime that ever happened on my watch was being committed by me. The noise sounded like children laughing. I pulled out my flashlight and searched the area.
No.
I didn't see anyone.
No.
I could hear the laughter all around me, and what sounded like whispers, but the whispers were incoherent. I started yelling for them to come out, but there was nothing. I could hear the movement and laughing, but I couldn't see anything. The worst part of all of this was that it was all around me, and I still couldn't see anything. I felt crazy. I shouted that I was going to call the police, like the tough security guard that I was, and the laughing stopped for a second, but then it started again. I ran out of the store and back to the office. I pulled up the tape and saw nothing. All you can see in the security footage is me waving the flashlight around like an idiot and yelling at nothing. I didn't call the police because my plan was to catch these kids when they tried to escape. I may know where all the blind spots are, but I know there's no way these kids would know. I pulled up all the camera feeds for that store and watched them all night, and surprisingly, I saw nothing for the entire evening. Close to dawn, I went back to the store and walked around, and I saw no evidence of any kids or break-ins. I chalked this up to my mind playing tricks on me and just decided to move past it. I had the next 2 nights off. When I went back to work, I asked the guy who was leaving as I was punching in if anything weird happened the last 2 nights, to which he said no. That night, I decided I was going to check out that store again and maybe help myself to a little something. When I got to the store around 3 in the morning, I made my way to the sneaker section, and as I grabbed a pair of new Vans, I heard something swoosh by me. I froze because any noise you're not expecting is alarming in this situation. I shouted, "Who's there?" but the only response I got was the taunting laughter again. I ran out of the aisle, still holding onto the Vans in my hands. Once again, I was shining the flashlight all over the store, and again, I didn't see anything. I was shouting and moving around erratically. I was still holding the sneakers in one hand and holding the flashlight with the other as I aggressively walked through the store.
And they're seeing you
I made
on
my way to one of the corners of the store, and then I saw something move from the corner of my eye. I looked down the aisle to my left, and I shouted. I saw a small figure come out from the back of the aisle and wave at me.
Dude,
I tried
why
shining
you do
my
that?
flashlight, but they were too far away. It just looked like a dark shadow.
You did that shit, made me. My heart go.
Towards them. I took my eyes off the shadow for 1 second, and they were gone.
I was expecting something to pop up on the screen.
I started running around that area like a crazy person shouting, but I couldn't see them again. I could still hear the laughter and running all around me, though.
Dummy.
Then I heard one of the voices, clear as can be, say my full name. I had about enough at that point. I wanted no part of being in this store anymore. I ran back to the security office. I didn't even realize through all this confusion, I still had the Vans in my hand. I set them down in the office and told myself I would bring them back in the morning. Right now, I just wanted to pull up the footage and catch whoever these kids were that were messing with me. I watched every second of the feed, and not once can you see anything other than me running around. I looked insane. The craziest part is that there's a camera that faces down the aisle where I saw the kid, but on the footage you can't see anyone. I don't know if it was just too dark or what, but there was no sign of anyone.
Yeah.
That morning when my supervisor showed up, I told her all about the previous night and the night from 2 days ago. She pulled up the footage and only saw me running around like an idiot. She also saw the Vans in the office and questioned why I had them in the first place. I didn't have a real answer for her. I could tell she was more suspicious of me. She told me that some of the stores had reported some theft, and that the vans in my
Idiot.
office and my erratic behavior didn't look good. I kept trying to tell her that I wasn't being erratic and that there was someone in the store. I told her that they even knew my name, and she didn't believe me. She basically accused me of stealing right there, and I denied it. I quit at that moment because I felt like if I didn't work there anymore, I couldn't get in trouble for stealing. I don't know why I thought that. They ended up doing an investigation for the theft, not the potential intruders that I reported. Somehow, I didn't get caught, and nobody was arrested. When I think about this experience, I think that maybe I'm crazy, and that I was seeing things that weren't there. I also don't have any history of seeing or hearing things like this, and I haven't heard or seen anything since then. I know what I saw. I know I can't prove it, and I know it sounds insane, but I know I saw someone standing there. I know someone was messing with me. I just can't believe they knew my name.
Okay, I'm gonna make a quick crazy theory real quick. Like that property, there's probably it probably is haunted. Okay, but the spirit there is not malicious. It just lingers. It's probably a protective spirit. This moose twit goes there and starts stealing from the stores. Okay, what's gonna happen? It's gonna come out. It's gonna mess with him. It's gonna punish him. That's what I'm thinking. And pretty much it did just that because his dumbass had those vans. He was running around the store. The manager saw him with them. Okay. It set him up. He just idiot. He's an idiot. That's all I gotta say. And he got what he deserved. Right. And based on what happened with him, I do have a short story to tell after this video's done. Okay. So let me get back into it. Another anonymous.
Dear Mr. Nightmare, I've been watching your videos for many years now. Some of the stories you've narrated have reminded me of myself and something I've done in the past. I'm not proud of it, but I think it would be interesting for your viewers to hear a story from the quote, bad guy's perspective. For that reason, I'll obviously choose to stay anonymous.
That was a weird
I
transition.
wouldn't say I was a bad person before this. I mostly kept to myself.
Well, that's a nice drone shot.
Did what I had to do and went home. I've always been socially awkward, and I didn't really have friends, but it never bothered me that much because that was normal to me in my school days. And then one day, I got paired with a girl for a presentation in one of my classes. I'll call her Emily. She was normal and easy to talk to, the kind of person who made group work enjoyable. The first time we met up in the library, we went over the outline for about an hour, but I found myself paying attention to things that had nothing to do with the project. Small things about her and the way she talked and wrote. I realized instantly I had a thing for her. After that, we exchanged numbers to stay in touch about the presentation, and that should have been the end of it. That night, I looked her up online. It wasn't hard to find her after saving her number so I could see her Snapchat profile through contacts.
Is Snapchat still a thing?
Within a few minutes, I had her Instagram, and from there, it just kept going.
Because I haven't done anything with Snapchat for over 4 years.
Because honestly, this was the only real female interaction I had for a long time, and I was infatuated. I scrolled through her photos. I saw where she went, who she spent time with, and I started noticing details in the background that I could kind of piece together. It turned into me checking her accounts constantly, like it had become part of my routine.
You became a stalker.
In a few days, I had a pretty good idea of what neighborhood she lived in.
Oh boy.
I took things too far when I looked up how to find someone's address with their phone number, and I realized how easy it is. When I found
That's scary as hell.
I drove past her house once. Then I circled back and slowed down. There was a light on upstairs, and I wondered if it was her bedroom. I noticed the red car parked in front of the house that I was pretty sure was hers because it had a parking sticker for our college on the side window. I should have stopped there, but I got addicted to stalking this girl. It turned into something I did a couple nights a week.
Josh,
I always stayed in the car and told myself I wasn't crossing a line.
Oh, yeah, you keep believing that, buddy.
One night I was parked a little further down the street and noticed the blinds in the upstairs window shift a little bit. I saw someone peering out the window. I couldn't tell if it was her, but it was definitely someone peering out. I started freaking out, thinking she or a family member noticed me and was onto me. I left right away, perhaps making it more suspicious. And the whole drive home, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day in class, Emily acted completely normal, but at one point, she had a comment that made my heart drop. She made a subtle comment about some of the boys at the school being creepy, and that she was dealing with a stalker situation.
Ooh.
I didn't ask her to go deeper into it, because I was terrified to know if she was referring to me.
That an iPad?
After that,
with a
I stopped
keypad?
going near her house.
Or an iPod?
I stopped
or a
checking her
Chromebook?
profile as much too. I was convinced she might have caught on, and I didn't want to push it further. Now here's where things really started messing with my head.
Oh boy.
At this time, I was living in my grandparents' house. That was handed down to my parents after they both passed.
The hell was
I still
that?
do live here. So I was alone. I was in my room at like 9 o'clock at night, and I heard something outside, like a light tap against the window. I don't mean someone ominously tapping their finger on the glass. I mean it sounded like someone brushing up against the glass as if trying to look inside. I was too scared to go look though.
Damn,
The next
way that
night,
audio
it happened
changed up.
again. But this time, it sounded like it was coming from a different side of the house. This was when I knew it wasn't a coincidence. And it only got worse. I started seeing shapes through the blinds, someone standing too close to the window. It was never clear enough to see who it was, just enough to know that there was a person or multiple people circling my house. I stopped opening the blinds completely after that. I stayed in my room with the door locked and the lights off. This went on for days. I stopped going to class entirely. I barely left my room unless I had to. There was a person or group of people trying to see if I was home. I started using my limited money to have any food or necessities delivered because I didn't want to leave the house.
Dude.
Every sound made me feel like someone was right outside. During all of this, Emily started texting me asking if I was okay since I hadn't shown up to class or responded about the project. I didn't answer right away, but eventually I replied and told her I was sorry and asked her to please stop sending people to my house. As soon as I sent it, I regretted it. Her response came a few minutes later. The typing bubble came up, then disappeared, then came up, then disappeared. I watched the whole time as she was definitely trying to figure out how to respond. When she did, she responded confused and concerned, asking what I was talking about. That was the moment it really hit me that maybe she had nothing to do with any of this. I tried to play it off like I sent that message to the wrong person, and she surprisingly didn't question it after that, but the damage was already done in my head. That night was the worst it had been. It was late, and I was sitting on my bed in the dark when the doorbell rang. It came out of nowhere and made my heart jump. I lay still for a few seconds before getting up and walking downstairs with all the lights still off. Yes, I was living in darkness for days. I stood near the door without opening it, just to listen. The person on the other side must have heard me, because they asked me to open the door. Not asked, they told me to. I told them I didn't order anything. The tone on the other side got more aggressive, telling me to open the door like it wasn't a request anymore. I didn't respond. I just backed away and went upstairs as quietly as I could. Then I locked myself in my room. They spammed the doorbell for a solid minute. I was hiding in my bed like a coward. After a minute or two, they stopped. I went to stay with my parents for a few days, not telling them the reason, because I didn't want to explain my creepy actions. The rest of my time working with Emily in class was very awkward. I never found out if she sent her family or friends or whoever to my house. If it wasn't her, I don't know who it could have been. Regardless, I never went to her house again or stalked her page again. Whoever was coming to my house lost interest after I spent like 5 days at my parents' house. I got a taste of my own medicine, and I never want that to happen again.
Okay, I thought he said he was staying with his grandparents. Where were they at? I mean, if you're staying with family and somebody comes ringing the doorbell all odd hours of the night, okay, or showing up at all hours of the night, wouldn't they come up and say something? That was messed up. Story number 4, bye. Buddy.
2 years ago, I was what you would call lost in life. I didn't have any direction. I worked dead-end jobs, had no relationships, and just blindly went through life. Something was missing in my life. I tried filling the void with a lot of different fixes,
That looked
but
like
I was
Houston
always
traffic.
left feeling empty. Until one day, I did something strange. Something that gave me such a
Damn.
rush. I trespassed into a home in my neighborhood.
People switching
Don't
lanes,
worry, I
no
know how
turn
sketchy
signal.
this is. Basically, I knew the
Oh,
owners
yeah,
of the
finally
house,
one.
and
Look
I
at
knew they
that.
were at work that day. Earlier that morning, they had some workers go to their house to do some kind of construction project. I just happened to see them leave for lunch when I was on a walk. I don't know what came over me, but I went to the front door and checked if it was locked, and it wasn't. I walked inside and just took a self-tour of their home. This rush of being inside someone else's house was exhilarating. I stayed at their house for several minutes and then left before the construction crew came back. After that day, I started breaking into homes I knew were empty just for the thrill of it.
I hate to say it, but I've done that before. But I was really young. I think I was in junior high when I did it. I only did it 3 times. And the thing was is that I knew the people. I would just, it was like the kids that lived there, I knew them. I'd go to their house to, knock on the door, see if they were there. And sometimes the door would be open. I'd just walk in, look around, see what they had in their house, and then not leave. But I was like in 6th grade when I did this. It's, yeah, it was a rush, but it's not something you want to do. Never did that mess again after that. That's how you get your whole ass blowed off.
I never took anything. I would just walk around and observe people's living spaces. I would get this eerie rush standing in a room. Just the feeling of knowing I was there and the person had no idea. It was an amazing feeling for me.
I don't know about
Just
all
like
that.
every other fix in my life, this started to get old as well. That eerie rush eventually just disappeared. Knowing I was in the house soon became not enough. I needed more. I started calling myself a reverse thief. I would go into these homes and leave something behind. Something inconspicuous.
Ooh, I like
Even
that
though I would
setup.
never see the reaction with my own
I like
eyes,
that
I would
fireplace.
fantasize about their reactions. For example, one time I left a folded blanket on a living room couch. A blanket that I brought with me, not one that the owners already had in the house. The idea of the conversations that would start made me almost giddy. I was like a small child on Christmas. In
That's weird.
hindsight,
I ain't
I
never
know
heard of
how
that
twisted
before.
this is. If I ever came home and saw something like that, I would probably freak out and call the cops. This reverse thief thing I was doing became my life. I would literally base my entire week around it. I started to people watch intensely. Once I had an idea of their schedule, I would locate the home and find a weak area to enter the house when the owners weren't home. You'd be surprised how many people have a key under a doormat or a fake rock thing that holds a spare key. It was only a matter of time before I started becoming a real terror. I started getting really dark. To give you an idea of how messed up I was, I'll share this little story. One time, I left a big pink hair tie and an eyeshadow pencil in the bathroom of a house. I hid in a bush on the side of the house and waited for the couple to get home from work. I needed to hear this reaction. The woman got home first, and she was not pleased. Her husband got home shortly after, and they began to fight.
Oh,
He
because she thought
obviously
he was
had no idea
cheating.
what she was talking about, but the evidence was there. Can you imagine coming home and finding something like that? I'm sure it wouldn't end well for anyone. I became this mischievous little monster, and I loved it. It was only a matter of time before I got a taste of my own medicine. One
Ew.
afternoon, when I got home from work, I noticed something on my counter in the kitchen. It was a little vase with one small yellow flower. This is for sure something that wasn't there when I left that morning. Next to the vase was a note. It was written in cursive and said, "We know it was you." I felt sick. I checked all my locks, and everything appeared to be locked up. I couldn't think of anyone who could have done this to me. I was always so careful not to leave a trail. I went to my bedroom that night and locked the door. Calling the cops wasn't an option because if this person actually knew who I was, they could ruin me. I thought about going back to my parents' house, but that was a headache I didn't want to deal with.
It would have really
That
flipped
night,
about if that
I
was
did
his
some
dishes
soul
and they came
searching.
in there and they washed them.
I decided it was time to end my reverse thief charade. I woke up in the morning expecting to have another surprise. Thankfully, there was nothing. I ran some errands, and when I got back home, I wasn't so lucky. This time, I did have another surprise waiting for me. Once again on the counter was a note accompanied by a dead bird. The note said, "We're coming for you." At that moment, I ran to the bedroom and started packing a bag. I was going to stay at my parents' house until I could figure out a plan. When I got to the room, I heard something shuffling. It wasn't coming from the room. I heard something from the vent. I went over and put my ear to the vent that was on the ground. There was movement coming from downstairs in the basement. There was no doubt in my mind that someone was down there. While listening, I could hear voices, but they were too muffled to understand what they were saying. At least, I thought they were voices. I slowly got up. I was trying not to make any noise, even though I had already been home for several minutes. I grabbed my bag and slowly made my way to the door. Each step I took, I felt like I was making a lot of noise. Every time I thought I heard something,
Dude, this
I
has
would
got me
freeze.
vested.
Once I realized it was nothing, I would continue my slow walk. I got to the front door, which was located right next to the door that led to the basement. My curiosity was killing me. I wanted to know who was messing with me and who was potentially in my house. I
I
opened the
hope you
basement
had a
door.
gun.
I could hear quiet voices talking. I was sure that they were voices now. As I took one step onto the creaky wooden stairs, I heard a loud shh. I shouted down the stairs, but nobody shouted back. I knew I heard voices literally 3 seconds ago. I was too scared to go down and look, especially if there were more than one person. I turned around and slammed the basement door. I crept out of the house quietly. I got in my car and I kept looking back at the house to see if anyone followed me, but nobody ever did.
Y'all hear that
Drove
audio?
to my parents' house and told them I needed to stay there for a few days because the landlord at my place was fixing some plumbing issues. I stayed at my parents' house for a week. After making it that long without any more weird gifts or notes, I thought it might be safe to go back to my house and see if anyone was still there. While I was staying at my parents' house, I also contacted my landlord and asked if I could get out of my lease a month early, which he agreed to. I planned on staying at my parents' house for the next month while I packed everything up, just in case these visitors came back. When I got back to the house to start packing things, the first thing I noticed was that the door was unlocked and wide open.
Oh, hell
I
no.
didn't lock it when I left, but I definitely closed it. The next thing I noticed was that they left several more gifts in the kitchen. Another dead bird, some more flowers, and a little toy car that looked just like my car. I went to the bedroom and listened intently to the vent.
Looks like they
I
washed
didn't
some
hear
dishes.
anything. So I went to the basement door, opened it, and started screaming down there. No noise at all. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen just in case and went to the basement. Nobody was there. I felt a brief moment of relief. I thought to myself, maybe they figured I left for good, and because of that, they left. At least that's what I hoped. I wasn't going to take any chances, though. I grabbed a few essential things and ran to my car. I just didn't want to be in there anymore. Since I had a month to move out, grabbing everything right now was a waste of time. I reversed out of the driveway, and as I put the car in drive, I saw something. Directly across the street was an older couple standing there. Not super old, they were like in their 50s or 60s. These were two people whom I've never seen before, which wouldn't be weird on its own. What made it weird was that the older woman waved to me, and I noticed a small yellow flower in her hand. It looked like the same type of flower that was left in my kitchen. The man next to her didn't do anything. He just stood there and watched me. I didn't engage with him at all. I stepped on the gas and drove away. I looked in the mirror one time as I sped down the street, and I could see them still looking in my direction. When I was driving back to my parents' house, I took a roundabout way. I didn't see them follow me, but I was paranoid now. I spent the next few weeks afraid of my own shadow. Every noise made me jump. Every person who got too close, I thought they were trying to grab me. I can say that this experience changed me for sure. That day I got that first flower was the end of my reverse thievery. To this day, I have never been caught. But even more disturbing to me is that I still have no idea who broke into my home and why. If it were that older couple, I can honestly say I have no idea who they were. The only thing I can say for sure is that crime doesn't pay, because eventually, you always get what's coming to you, one way or another.
Mm-hmm. Woo! Yo, that last story had me vested, man. Damn. 3 true scary stories with video footage. Oh, snap. Yeah, we definitely got to do that one. I got to note that one for Friday. Yeah, that's going to be, oh man. Wow. First 3 were crazy, but that last one, whoo, I'm sorry. That's another reason I don't like basements. But yeah, I live by myself with Bailey now since, and man, I'm sorry. I'm packing. I'm sorry. If I hear I hear noises once in a while, okay? And it is normally due to, like, when we have heavy storms and winds, you'll hear different sounds because it's like vents in the bathroom and in the kitchen, and when they flap hard. Okay. Plus you'll hear the ice maker making ice, and it's loud as hell. But I'm serious. I am locked and loaded, and if somebody brave enough to try to come in here and do something stupid, I'm gonna deal with them. But damn, why you going into people's houses, leaving crap just to? I don't know if that's worse than breaking in, taking somebody's crap. Oh my god. Well, he got his just desserts, but damn, that last one was good. But I noticed there was a lot of weird audio tricks going on that Mr. Nightmare was doing with that one too. It kind of threw me off. But man, overall the video was good. But I mean, that very first guy, he definitely got what he deserved. That second one, good grief. But the third one, he was mm, creepy. It may have been one of a relative that was doing it. It could have been the girl's father, could have been one of her brothers, or her brother, or her sister. Somebody that knew he was doing that crap. So, but this last one, gosh, damn. It'd be funny if the house that he went in and left that and got that argument started, those were like maybe like the parents of the guy or the girl, and they found out about it and realized it was him. Damn. And why would you leave the house and leave the door unlocked? If you leave and close the door, okay, lock that B. Yeah, like, that's just stupid right there. Now, as I was saying, I did have a little story that was reminding me of that was it, which one was it? Yeah, the second story where the guy was doing security. Okay. And the thing was is that it goes back to where I used to work in retail, and one of the locations where I worked, um it was crazy cuz I worked at Blockbuster Video and I was an assistant manager. Okay. And one night when we were short because we there was a lot of transitioning going on with the company at the time with the stores and all that. And sadly we were kind of short staffed. So one of the other stores sent one of their managers over to mine. Now I had worked the morning shift and it worked all the way up until 8 o'clock. So the guy that came from the other store understood how everything worked and handled everything. Well, I was getting calls from my agents. They were telling me this guy is doing some weird stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, well, he keeps going to the registers and he keeps taking out money. I'm like, what? What's he taking money out for? Is he bringing back change? I mean, because the thing is like if you've worked retail before, especially in a register, once you start getting a large number of bills, you're recommended to take them out, okay, and bring back a few smaller ones subsidized for those. But they said he was just going in, taking money out, and going to the back office. And I told him keep an eye on him, okay. So the thing was is that the next day, which was actually oddly enough my last day with the company, I went in, I checked the camera footage, and yeah, he was doing it. He was going to the registers. Like if the person wasn't at the register, he'd go up to it and he would open it up, go in, and he would pull money out, and it was all large bills. And then he'd close it and go back to the office, but he wouldn't bring back anything else. He would just go back to the office. And normally, if you do that because you don't want to keep large money in your register, And you also bring back like coins, ones, fives, maybe some tens to help consolidate the difference from what you've taken out. But you make sure your employee has plenty of money to help you know compensate for when people need change. So the thing is that I never saw him come back with um any change, any ones, fives, tens, nothing like that. He didn't bring anything back. So I actually made mention of this to the regional manager who was there my last day, because I was opening and he wanted to handle and deal with some things with me before I left the store, before I turned in my keys and everything and said bye bye. Well, the thing is like literally a week later, I get a phone call, okay, from Blockbuster's like security department asking me about that night. And I explained to him, I was like, yeah, because I was like, yeah, apparently my agents called, three of my agents called me at home, told me this guy was taking money out of the register. I even checked the cameras with the regional manager, and they confirmed, and he confirmed what he saw, that yeah, he was taking the money out. But then I found out that that night, the money from that night, okay, that Sunday night, was missing. Because here's the thing, you, of course, you tally up all the money and you lock it in the safe so that the next morning, whoever opens, whoever manager opens, takes the money to the bank and deposits it. And that deposit never made it to the bank. So they called me up 3 days later asking me if I would take a lie detector test. I was like, yeah, sure. I ain't got no problem with that. And I was just like, this boy done stole money from the store. Now they're checking everybody. And he, sure enough, it was 2 days before I was supposed to go in and take the lie detector test. And they called me up and said, don't worry, we are you don't need to take the lie detector test. We are closing this case. Okay. Thank you for all your patronage when you work, because I worked on for like, is it 4 years, and all my hard work, and they hoped I took care and yada yada. I was like, okay, that was weird. Which a friend of mine told me that they were probably afraid you could probably countersue them, because if they jumped up and accused you of stealing this money and it wasn't you, you could countersue them. But more than likely, I believe they realized that this guy was the one who stole the money, and they had no need to do a lie detector test or anything. So, but yeah, that was just wild. So, like I said, that fool that was stealing from the stores, that just brought that story to mind. So I wanted to share that with y'all. Sorry, but anyway, um, but yeah, okay, guys, now that I done rambled on, you guys tell me what you thought of this video. If you thought it was eerie, because I'm sorry, that last story really had me vested. That last story was good. Okay, and tell me if y'all have ever, like, just in your younger days, ever done any crazy stuff like that. Like I said, I've gone to friends' houses and they've had their doors unlocked, and I've gone in, looked around, and I've left. And okay, didn't take anything. I was just nosy. And like I said, I did that 3 times, never did it again. I was in 6th grade when I did it. But never did it again. But have y'all ever had any type of, they've done anything like that? I've never been stalked. I never stalked anybody. Okay. I never reverse robbed anybody. Okay, damn sure wasn't stealing from stores. But I mean, the thing is that I know some of us have done some crazy things in our past. And if you want to share some of your stories with me, which I would love to see, leave it in the comment section. Okay. And if you enjoyed my video and this reaction, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, share the love of this video with your friends and family. Okay. And help me get to 1,000 subscribers by summer so we can really get this channel bumping and going. Okay. As always, everybody, thank you so much for your support. You all have a blessed night. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.